Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Chesney, White Rock, BC City Councilor and editor of the WhiteRockSun.com. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very, very much, Jim. Good to be back.
First time we've had a chance to chat since the referendum results for the TransLink tax hike was put in, and a resounding 62% said no, and you were on the no side right from the start. Maybe explain why you supported no and what you think is going to happen now that they didn't get their 0.5% hike in the sales tax.
Well, first of all, to recap why I didn't support the move is here in White Rock, we've seen our service cut back, community shuttle bus service cut back from every half hour to an hour. They've now put one of the community shuttle buses that actually goes down to the beach, which is more for visitors and less for residents of White Rock. I mean, some residents of White Rock do use it, all the kids that skateboard down and want to ride back up, but generally that's for visitors. So we took quite a hit here for our service, and I see no signs of that being improved. And if the best that they could come up for White Rock, South Surrey was a fast bus up to Newton someday, I got to tell you, what's the second prize? Because that's a non-starter. So I just think they front-loaded way too much of this, and even Surrey, a place that would have received a lot of the funding apparently, their voting was down as well. So I think that this is more than just a backlash against TransLink. I think that's the main bulk of it. But I think, and I've seen Michael Smith or somebody I noticed is calling for the disbanding of this mayor's council. They're just sucking down a tremendous amount of money for a few rubber chicken dinners a year, and to the best of my knowledge have really accomplished nothing. So I think people are just sick and tired of these people slurping out of the slop hog and then telling that we need to tighten up our belts and get back on the bus. Doesn't work that way. But don't worry, they'll get the money. They'll put it on property tax or something. That's not going to be a problem. The money will be there, whether it's obviously not going to be 0.5 on the provincial sales tax, but I think it was, some of the mayors talked about the fact that, if you don't vote for this, you're going to get it anyways. The provincial government will just add it on. And that's another part that irks me. 17 cents of each liter of gas is already going for TransLink. So next time that you put $20 in your vehicle, just put $3.40 in an envelope and mail it to Victoria. I mean, what are you doing with the money we already gave you? So,
and what's more, too, with the sales tax levy, there's no guarantee the government would spend it on transit.
Well, that was the other part, too, is that would have been one-third. The provincial and the federal were also supposed to be in for one-third, and neither the federal or the provincial sort of a little inkling that they probably would support it, but never came out and slapped the money down on the table, and the Fed said nothing about it. So why are you going to get the one-third off of the taxpayers of the Lower Mainland when you don't have the other two-thirds committed to? It seems to me that they were doing it all ass backwards. We'll get the one-third off the back of the public, and then we'll go to the other two levels of government and we'll try to leverage the other two-thirds. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, you're absolutely right about Ottawa not saying a word. And again, if you're a local person, how come Ottawa will fund bridges in Montreal where they don't put tolls up, but they insist that we put tolls on our bridges?
Well, Jim, you've worked with multinational corporations as I have in the past, and you know where the center of the universe is. All decisions are made for Southern Ontario and Quebec, and I suppose if I lived there, I would do the same. Half the country's population is there. The best part about living out here is we're 3 hours behind and in no hurry to catch up.
Well, yes, and I know that Toronto's waterfront improvement project was heavily funded by the feds. Again, nothing for Vancouver, but you know how the Conservative Party looks at Vancouver. You don't vote for us, so we'll take away your seaplane control tower, which would have been very handy with the smoky weather we've had. We'll take away your Coast Guard base. We'll take away the funding for the high-angle rescue team that's the only one in Canada equipped and prepared to look after earthquake victims, and we send them to places around the world where there are earthquakes, but Ottawa doesn't fund them anymore. So, really, the Conservatives have given up on Vancouver. And I think that goes along with our transit as well.
I think you're probably pretty well right on that.
David, as a person who wants to look after local interests, do you think sometimes federal and provincial politicians forget that there's just one taxpayer?
on one hand, I think they do, but on the other hand, it seems to be, it's almost like an inherent right. It's like federal, provincial, and civic are all using the one black Amex card. Unfortunately, you're right. It is the taxpayers' dollars, and there's really little, seemingly a little taken into consideration of how that money is spent and how they're accountable. It really seems to me that, you know, they constantly just sort of brush the people off and just sort of the Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. That we know what's good for them. They simply don't know what's good for them.
And with tax hikes as well, you have your property taxes go up on the municipal level, and in some places in the Lower Mainland, 8 or 9%. Who got a 8 or 9% pay raise last year?
Most of our senior staff in White Rock, but that's a story for another day.
I was going to say CEOs got 17% last year, the average person less than 2%.
Yeah.
We can't all be CEOs, unfortunately.
But you know, at the end of the day, Jim, I mean, people need to wake up. And we just recently had a situation in White Rock where we held a series of 3 community meetings. One to talk about we're probably and we're in negotiations now to buy back the water system from EPCOR, which is a private division of the city of Edmonton. So we're big ticket items. We're buying back the water. Could be up to $23 million expenditure. We have an ongoing tree bylaw that needs to be rectified in White Rock, and the quite possible switch over to private garbage pickup from single-family homes. So what I'm getting at, we send out a notice to 9,000 homes that these meetings are coming up on a series of 3 consecutive Monday nights. On average, about 9,000 people would have received that notification. 20, 30 people turned up for the meetings. And I'm like, I didn't expect that there would be 5,000. I didn't expect that there would be 2,000. I did expect perhaps we might get 100 people. Not at all. People don't care until it's right in their front yard. Talk about not in my front yard, not in my backyard. Do whatever the heck you want, but whoa, baby, don't you block my view or I'll be down at City Hall with my hair on fire and then screaming somebody should do something about this because now it's me. Well, listen, I got news for you. When it becomes you, it's too late. It's too late, people.
Well, I think one of the reasons why people don't show up is they've seen too many examples of where they have crowded meetings and they've had to extend them over instead of one night over several nights. And then whatever the crowd said they wanted to happen, they were still ignored anyway.
Well, and I can't debate that, but at the same time, do you just give up? Do you just throw in the towel? Thank God that a lot of great freedom fighters that went before us didn't choose that tact. I know what you're saying, Jim, and I agree with you, but at the same time, you can affect change. You can affect change. I was just thinking the other day over in Ocean Park area of South Surrey here near Crescent Beach. Wonderful little community I lived in a few years back. I've never lived in an area where, as you're unpacking your boxes and moving in, people are coming over and bringing over a jar of Kool-Aid or inviting you to a party in their backyard on the upcoming Sunday. Anyways, it marveled me when we moved into the neighborhood that, you know, a lot of very beautiful homes were built there, but they did everything they could to maintain as many trees and to make homes that fit the character of the homes that were already there. Some of them built as cottages in the 50s and 60s and remodeled, and they were all very nice. Anyways, my point is, about 2 years ago, the developers came in and just started leveling every tree they could get off of the piece of property, and some of them they'd just pay a $10,000 fine to Surrey and go, yeah. So we cut that tree down, big deal. And they built these monster houses that take up almost virtually the entire lot. Well, this happened a little bit too much for the neighbors in that neighborhood, and they went around and they made signs and they put them in their front yard, you know, that said, save the trees, no monster houses. They went to the city, and they actually have now got some kind of moratorium. But the other fact of it is, too, and I was driving through the neighborhood the other day, I thought, now if I was thinking of moving into this neighborhood and thinking about mowing down a bunch of trees and building a monster house, I don't think the welcome mat would be out for me, and I really don't think that this is going to be probably where I want to live. That's just me. Maybe some people would go, I give a rat's ass. Quit your bitching and get out of my way. I'm building a monster house and knocking all the trees down. But I don't think so. I don't think very many. I think the majority of the people would go, you know what, Marge, this just might not be the neighborhood for us to build our monster house. Pushback seems to be pretty strong here, and the point I'm illustrating is people can't give up. I'm sorry that that we have to go back 2 times, maybe 3 times, maybe we have to go back 5 times, but we have to keep going back and let all levels of government know. Look, this is not going to happen this way. I mean, I'm scared as hell of what's going to happen in the federal election, aren't you?
Well, you never know. It's going to be the tightest race ever with all 3 major parties tied in popularity.
Well, we heard that one for the Surrey vote too, and it wasn't close. I'm tired of hearing these pollsters telling me, it's a dead heat. I don't believe it's a dead heat. I think Harper, sadly, in my opinion, is pulling away and leaving Mulcair and Trudeau in his dust.
And what kind of an indication of that are you getting?
Well, just the inefficiency of the other 2. I mean, what are you waiting for, gentlemen? Are you waiting for the final 72 hours to play your big card? I mean, I'm seeing nothing out of these 2. Nothing. Zero, nada. Maybe a little bit more out of Justin Trudeau, but Mulcair, has he been to BC lately?
If he hasn't made a big fuss about it.
Yeah, exactly. So what do? We wait for again. It's stump, stump, stump in southern Ontario and Quebec because they know that's where the election's going to be won.
Well, I noticed Justin Trudeau did make a point of going to all the radio stations and appearing there because friends of mine who work at those stations posted pictures of them posing with Justin. I haven't seen anybody posing with Harper, by the way, either.
No, and he's not going to go. He's not going to talk to anybody. He's not going to talk to anybody but, his popularity, the Conservatives' popularity, and the number of seats has risen exponentially every election. And right now, I mean, I look at the South Surrey area here. Our MP, Russie Bear, is retiring, and they're going to drop in that gold-plated Diane Watts. Now, she could send her kitty in with the message, and she's won this riding. But this is how they're doing it. This is how I think the Conservatives are doing it, is they're picking up the strongest candidates they possibly can. We don't vote for the Prime Minister in this country. People need to remember that. We only vote for the political party, and whoever gets the most votes, most seats, they win, and their leader gets to become Prime Minister. So we need to move past that and really start to take a look at what we're dealing with here. And on to that extent, Diane Watts might be a very good MP for the area. She's not going in as a backbencher.
Oh, I know she wouldn't accept the nomination if that was the case.
Probably not.
When you're the boss of the second biggest city in BC and soon to be the biggest, you wouldn't give that job up unless there was some plum, offered to you.
Yeah, I think she. Well, I don't know the lady personally, but I kind of get the impression. I think she kind of thought that she had run the course at City Hall up in Surrey. She did. I think she did a good job. I mean, there's everybody is open to criticism when you take a job like that. But I think when the dust cleared, I think she did a great job of starting the reinvention of Surrey. I don't know how it will go under Linda Hepner. I'll wait and see how that goes. But I think over her tenure.
Well, I wasn't happy that Hepner at first said all these shootings every night in Surrey. That's not a political problem. I'm not going to comment. Well, you're supposed to be the leader of the people. You should be in the middle of it.
The gunfire's not happening in her front yard. It's happening over in Newton. If it was happening on the street she lives on, I'll tell you right now, this problem would be solved. The low track area over around Scott Road and that where these shootings are taking places, that's where I see, every day. I mean, we had another shooting again overnight, another home invasion. I almost know without even looking at the address, it's going to be 70th, 72nd, 74th, 76th Avenue, and 120th up to 123rd or 128th Street or whatever. It's a quadrant there, and I do work with an organization called Friends of the Family. We deliver a lot of furniture to refugees, and that's pretty much where we go. There's a lot of low track apartments there. And I'm not saying that the big problem is refugees. I'm just saying that the big problem is, Scott Road. One side you've got the Delta Police. Their motto is no call too small. And then the Surrey RCMP on the other side. why are all the murders and the shootings taking place on the Surrey side of that street? Statistics have been proven out time and time again that the criminals simply do not go west of Scott Road because then they're in Delta. So all the shootings and gang banging and drug dealing and whatever, it's miraculous. It all happens on the Surrey side of Scott Road, which is the division between Scott Road and Delta. But you have a private police force in Delta, and they don't put up with anything over in Delta.
Or a municipal police force, not private.
Municipal, yeah.
We'll have more with David Chesney right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with David Chesney. David, we were just talking about the drive-by shootings and gun battles in the street that happened in Surrey. You mentioned they have the RCMP. Why is the RCMP such an ineffective police force in a municipality that size?
Well, I don't know whether it would be any whether a private police force or a municipal police force would be able to do a better job. I really don't know what the problem is. Why? I mean, it is a massive area, but it's not spread out far and wide across Surrey. I mean, there are conclaves of gang activity. They pretty much know where it is, and I don't know. Whether it's the justice system, whether the cops are arresting these people and they're going in the front door of the cop shop and right out the back door an hour later. I really don't know. I just know that sometimes I'll see some of the rap sheets of these guys that they have busted, and they're let off with nothing. 6-month suspended sentence, month on the bracelet. You have to come home right after work for a week. I mean, I don't know.
I know in Burnaby, when they had a problem with all these crack houses behind Metrotown Mall, the biggest mall in British Columbia, they put a person from Immigration Canada right in the RCMP headquarters. So when they brought in an immigrant and they were charged with a crime, they were on the plane back home within days. And it did settle it. Yes, some of them came back several times, but after a while, they're flagged at the border and they're not allowed in. And that's what it took, was a concerted effort. Is Surrey doing that kind of thing? That's what I wonder. And again, I have a mayor there who doesn't like to answer questions like that.
Yes, well, as we were talking a little earlier about the different styles between Linda Hepner and Diane Watts. I mean, the media loved Diane Watts. She was always very available, and she knew how to deal with the media. I haven't seen any evidence that Linda Hepner has those same abilities, but it was a pretty special, selective ability that Diane Watts had anyway. So I wasn't looking for Linda Hepner to be Diane Watts version 2.
I know you hear from people, all those politicians are all the same. Well, I can tell you, having dealt with them for 35, 40 years, no, they are not the same.
No, they're not.
It's a talent business, just like being an athlete.
Yep.
There are some who are very bad and some who are very good, and of course most are in the middle somewhere. But when you elect them, you really don't know what you're getting until you see them in action.
That's true.
As people promise you the moon, and what part of the moon do you own today?
None, really.
Well, David, some people have billed you, the man of the people. What do you feel with a title like that?
Well, it's a mantle that was bestowed on me by our mayor. I think I'm very comfortable with it. I do consider myself a man of the people in the fact that I'm very in touch with this community. The community conversation is just one of my efforts that I do everything I possibly can to be as connected with the community as possible. And whether somebody sends an email or a phone call, they will hear from me at some point in time and as quickly as possible. I like to deal with it quickly, because then it doesn't fall through the cracks and then they get, upset that somebody didn't get back to them. But I think if you take the time to get a hold of any elected official at any level of government at the very least, you should be able to expect some form of a personal response. You know, I'll phone somebody back, and I can deal with most matters in a minute or 2 minutes. I'm not going to sit on the telephone and yak all day long by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that's what people want. I think people just simply want to know, and it's when you were talking about earlier that people don't go down and protest anymore because they just feel it doesn't do any good. I think people, if they reach out and they do hear back from their elected officials, they feel tremendously connected into the community. They go, great, it's not them and us. You know, I can work with this. So being a man of the people, I'm incredibly proud of that, if that's what people want to think of me as.
Well, I see so often, of course, in an election campaign, they go door to door, they shake hands, and people are really impressed with that. But then that personal touch disappears for the next 4 years.
Yeah, happens all the time. You know, I mean, I notice that, you know, even with members of council. White Rock is a very small town, very, very small town. You know, I used to see the mayor a lot more. I don't know, maybe he has other things on his schedule or whatever. But what I'm getting at is that there are at least 3 of my fellow council members that I don't see in the community from one council meeting to the next. So I'm not sure where they buy their groceries, where they get their car filled up with gasoline, which restaurants they dine in, where they go, because I never see them. Maybe they don't go out. Maybe they just stay home. I have no idea.
Just order everything online.
Yeah, well, that could be.
David, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Jim, always a pleasure, and we'll be checking in with you. We have the community conversation coming up Saturday, August 4th. Let me just check that date today. It's the first Saturday in August, and as I quickly fan through here, it is Saturday, August 1st. So I guess that's the BC Day weekend, but I think it's just important for consistency to carry them on. So I'll be at the White Rock Public Library if anybody would like to come by, 10 o'clock. Bring your own coffee because I won't have it.
David, again, thanks for chatting.
All right, Jim, thank you. Have a good day.
My guest has been David Chesney, White Rock, BC City Councilor and editor of the WhiteRockSun.com. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.